from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to Tuesday night edition of the program. We are live, we are national, happy to be here. It's a real blessing to be with you. And I want to give you the phone number if you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation. Give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And President Trump was on the roof of the White House today doing what he does best. No hard hat, no nothing. Up there talking about building a huge, big, beautiful ballroom. And, in recent days, a lot of people were like, oh, my gosh, but, can we really afford a $200 million project right now? This guy's spending money like a drunken sailor. And I was like, yeah, I can't believe that this is going on. Unbelievable. Well, never believe the fake news. The taxpayers aren't paying for this. Trump is paying for it himself with a bunch of his rich friends. You know why? Because Trump has good ideas. He's the kind of guy that says, you know what, I'll make a donation to this thing, put my name on it, the Donald J. Trump Ballroom, and the bathroom will say the restroom pavilion donated by, and put somebody else's name on it. And all these people are going to fork over all this money, and voila, the American people and generations to come get a big, beautiful ballroom, and not a single penny to taxpayer expense, minus the Secret Service protection and, outfitting that they have to do for that stuff. But I think that's a win for the American people. And again, just goes to show you who Trump is as a person. He says, I think we need a ballroom, but I don't want the people to pay for it. But we need it anyway. It's not like he gets to take it with him, right? He's only there for a few more years. This thing will probably be done by the time, he might have one party in there before he leaves, just so he could say, we finished it on time and under budget, to pat himself on the back. But good for him. I think that's a good thing. And great poll that I saw earlier. Let me see if I can pull it up. I was actually going to start with that, not with the roof thing. But you know me, ADHD kicks in, and, it's anybody's game after that. Bear with me. This is called being prepared. Now, this was a really good one, too. Right here. Most voters believe, this was good, 54% of voters that were polled here believe that the Biden administration likely committed crimes in Russiagate. How about that? 54%. This is a recent poll revealing that 54% of likely U.S. voters believe that members of former President Barack Obama's national security team likely committed crimes by promoting a false narrative about Donald Trump's ties with Russia. Rasmussen Reports conducted a national telephone and online survey of 1,172 U.S. likely voters last week, inquiring about the following questions. Question 1. How closely have you followed recent news about investigations of national security during the Obama administration? Question number 2. A recent report from the Director of National Intelligence concluded that President Obama's national security team manipulated, manufactured, and presented intelligence to promote a false narrative about Russia and Donald Trump. How likely is it that Obama officials committed serious crimes in manipulating intelligence? And question number 3. Do you agree or disagree with this statement about the manipulation of intelligence in the Obama administration? Quote, accountability has to take place. It is critical for the survival of our country that people who perpetrate such crimes are held accountable. The poll found that among 54% that consider it likely that Obama's team committed serious crimes, 37% consider it very likely. 41% don't think it's likely at all, including 28% who answered no thanks. So very interesting. Don't think it's likely, not likely at all. Small numbers, big numbers, 54%, 41%, likely and very likely. How about them apples? A couple of years ago, it was like, that's not even true. They're making that up. That's fake news, fake, phony fraud. So this is when I argue with my brother, who I hope he listens to the show. I doubt he does. He's too busy. He likes the ones that on the video channels like Rumble and whatnot. But he catches clips, I'm sure, because I send him a whole bunch. But I always argue with him about this correcting the record. And I tell him, look, before you do anything, you have to correct the record. You can't just come out tomorrow and just start locking people up. People are going to look at you sideways and go, hold on a second, why are you arresting all these people that worked for Obama? You guys look like tyrants. You look like you're out to get your political enemies. You have to make a case. You have to show what it is that they did, how they did what they did. Why is it bad to lie and say that Trump was peeing on hookers in Moscow? I think anybody would imagine that that is bad in and of itself. But this is what they did. That's what they said. None of it was true. And they presented it as real and got a warrant to surveil this man, both as a candidate and then as president. This is unheard of craziness. So yeah, you want anybody else to be able to do that in the future? Imagine you get elected president, or whomever your favorite president is. Your fantasy president pick gets elected to become president, and then he gets spied on. I mean, come on. You really, this is like the stuff that comes out of television. Crazy stories. It's, usually it's art imitating life. This is like life imitating art. This is absolutely insane, but good poll that shows that, guess what? I'm impressed. I'm impressed that people are buying into it. I'm glad people are engaging in our late night national conversation, and everybody else who's out there beating this drum, helping people to understand this is not a political attack. We can't stop Obama from becoming president. This is truly about correcting the record of what happened and not allowing that man or any other that served with him to have this legacy that he's somehow sacrosanct, that he's fantastic, that he's above the fray, that he is, as Joe Biden said, he's like the sharpest, cleanest African-American ever, man. Right? That's what Joe Biden said. Quote. He doesn't get to walk away with all these cool accolades. He gets to walk away and go down in the history books as the guy who tried to sabotage the guy that his team couldn't beat at the polls. That's a fact. Anyway, we're going to get into a bunch of things this evening, amigos. We're going to talk about the redistricting in Texas as that continues, as warrants are served and whatnot. What's the next step there? And, of course, California firing back saying, well, you guys start redistricting in Texas. Guess what? We're going to redistrict in California. And we're going to wipe out Republican districts to even out what you're trying to pull off in Texas. Now, they're failing to recognize that what they're doing in Texas, they're trying to add districts there that the Democrats are afraid will go Republican because they're in Republican-leaning areas. But this is because these areas have shown population growth, right? And they're trying to, because of the population growth, redistrict the map. Now, I guess it makes sense to whoever's in power, they're going to have, first dibs. But is California right to say everything you do over there, you add 3 new seats, we're going to take away 3? What's the basis of that? Are they basing it on people leaving California? I think not. They're basing it on pure politics. So we're going to talk about that. Then vaccines. The vaccine debate continues. A lot of news coming out of the Department of Health and Human Services from Secretary Bobby Kennedy Jr. We'll talk about those things as well. And what else? There's one more topic here. Oh, yes. What happens in this leaderless Democrat Party? Is Jasmine Crockett the future? Is the way she rises to the top by calling Donald Trump a piece of bleep like she did yesterday? Is that what's going to get her the title or a shot at the title? And why isn't Kamala the person, right? Kamala, how bad you are. Why is she not the leader of the pack when she literally just ran with her $1 billion. Why did she say there's no leader? Well, we'll get some reaction to that from my buddy Brandon Brice, is scheduled to be with us. Let's see if he drinks that coffee and does a knockout. I wouldn't put it past him. Anyway, let me see what else we got here. Well, anyway, there's a lot more to discuss, but we're going to do that momentarily. Again, here's the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. I want to continue the discussion, the ongoing saga of the Texas Democrats, and it seems they've kind of elected Jasmine Crockett as their leader. And Jasmine Crockett, she is now coming up with all sorts of clever names. She's calling Trump Timu Hitler. Listen to this.
Now, let me say, this governor talks a lot of noise, and I made sure that I put up my warrant from 4 years ago to make it plain that they talk a lot of noise, but these guys are weak. That's why they're over here trying to bully people. Bullies are always weak. The difference is they expect Democrats to kind of be the nice guys that we are. They expect us to take the punch and say thank you. Well, I am here to tell you, not only are we going to punch back, but we're about to beat you down. We have a Timu Hitler in the White House right now that thinks that he is going to become the dictator of the United States. Well, I got another thing to tell you, sir. The Democrats, no matter whether we're talking about these Texas House Democrats, or whether we're talking about the governor from Illinois, the governor from California, or whether we're talking about New York, or I can go through the states, and it's not just the governors. It is the state houses. It is the state senators. It is those congressional delegations that are saying, do what you got to do, and I will fight, and I will win, and I will earn my seat back to the people's house in D.C. I am here to tell you that time is up for playing in our faces. The Democrats are not going to stand for this any longer. We know that we are standing for the people, and so long as we stand for the people, I absolutely believe the people are going to stand for us. So I just want to be clear.
That was painful. Again, that's Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman from Texas, and seemingly becoming the de facto leader of this coalition. She's getting more airtime than anybody. And what's funny here is she's saying that they're talking a whole lot of noise. And it seems to me that she's the one talking a whole lot of noise, right? She's got some authority. She can try and put forward bills, and she's not doing anything except talking a whole lot of smack. But I want to get to the bottom of this, because obviously this is a back and forth that's going on. It's a little bit of a game of chicken. You know me, I am very, very skeptical that we're going to see Jasmine Crockett in handcuffs. I'm skeptical that we're going to see any of the Texas Democrat congressional delegation in handcuffs. And I want to know what does the future look like moving forward. So I want to bring in Ammon Blair. He is the senior fellow at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. He's actually a former U.S. Army officer and a former Border Patrol agent as well. Ammon Blair, welcome back, sir.
Thank you for having me, sir.
You bet. So let's talk a little bit about this. You just heard this tirade from Jasmine Crockett, Representative Crockett from Texas. She's trashing Governor Abbott. She's trashing President Trump. And seemingly that's all she's doing is trashing. What happens now?
Yeah, so right now, Abbott actually filed an emergency petition with the Texas Supreme Court to remove Representative Wu from office. Also, it's about 32 pages or 30-some-odd pages, actually going to vacate many of these people that have actually left, many of these House Democrats. So they were given a choice to come back by a certain time period. They did not. The House Speaker, Burrows, gave them another additional time period by Friday. And if not, the Attorney General has also warned that all their seats would be vacated and that he would be looking into bribery charges. And bribery charges in that a letter to the Texas Supreme Court were also stated by Governor Abbott. So we'll see what happens. Just like what Crockett said, look, she showed her warrant from last time. Look, this happened in 2021. If you remember, the Democrats, it was over election issues. They fled to Washington, D.C., and warrants were issued and nothing happened. They returned back to Texas. There was a second special session, which the Democrats lost, and the bills were actually passed. However, just like she's saying a little bit, and she's taunting the governor and taunting Texas leadership because she's saying that they're toothless. So we'll see this back and forth, like you said. This is a lot of rhetoric. It's a lot of outrage, and it's trying to get social media clicks and then clickbait.
Yeah, and I get it. I really do. I mean, what's the alternative, right? The governor can sit there and he could also go on TV and make a lot of noise and talk a lot of smack. But ultimately, he's got a couple of tools up his sleeve that he can use to try and get this done, to make sure there's some continuity to the government. So he's using what he has available, saying, hey, look, if you compel me to have you arrested, I'll do that. But I'm sure he doesn't want to do that. Nobody wants to arrest somebody to make them do their job, especially when it's Jasmine Crockett, who will use that as a badge of honor. She's already waving around her former arrest warrant, and she would likely just get headlines that would help her cause. So it doesn't really seem like a win-win. So what do you, based on your experience and the understanding you have of the situation, what do you think is going to happen in the days to come?
I think this is going to be a multi-state effort. You're going to start seeing already as it is. Look, Illinois is they have the most gerrymandered state in the nation, and so it's interesting that a lot of our Democrats actually went to Illinois. But you're going to see more of this. You're going to see each state now trying to redistrict to eradicate the Republican vote, and so you're going to see state by state. Kind of eradicating the idea of citizenship. And so we already saw this earlier when Democrats tried to vote in where illegal aliens would be able to vote, both at the federal and state level. You're seeing this now, this redistricting. At the end of the day, it's all about who they can control and power to remain in power and control, whether that's going to be illegal aliens or whether they're going to try to go to what they think is their base, and that is going to be minority groups, making this a race-based issue, an illegal alien issue, and even them mentioning that this is like the Holocaust, or that Donald Trump is a fascist or a tyrant or a Hitler. Those images.
Yeah, Ammon, stick with me. We're going to come right back and continue discussion regarding what you guys at TPP are doing and how you can help. Folks, we're coming right back. All of your calls and more. Open Phone America is coming up. Get your calls in 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. It's Rich Valdez. We're coming right back with our guest, Ammon Blair. Don't go anywhere.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Democrat Party is self-destructing. I mean, when you have low IQ people like Crockett, I wonder if she's in a relationship to the late, great Davy Crockett, who was a great gentleman. I wonder if she's got any relationship to Davy Crockett, the great old Davy Crockett. But you have this woman Crockett. She's a very low IQ person. Somebody said the other day she's one of the leaders of the party. I said, you got to be kidding. The Democrats are lost. They have Trump derangement syndrome so bad that they can't walk. They can't talk. I mean. They don't know where they're going. Schumer is finished. Schumer, look, I watched him the other day. He's lost all of his confidence.
That, of course, El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th and 47th President of these United States, doing a telephone interview earlier today on the Fox News channel. And let me tell you, that was so funny. I was listening to a clip of that while I was doing an interview for Newsmax, and I was in the commercial break. I just started laughing, and they came back. I was still laughing. It was so funny. I wonder if she's related to the late, great Davy Crockett. I mean, he's just so funny to me. But President Trump making it clear that she's a low IQ individual, and he doesn't view her as a leader in the party. And that's because there are no leaders in the party. And we'll be revisiting that later with Brandon Brice. But right now, I want to continue the conversation about what's going on in Texas and the Democrats and this showdown with our guest, Ammon Blair, senior fellow at the Texas Policy Foundation. And he's with us to discuss this. Ammon, your thoughts on what happens moving forward and how you guys at TPP are going to help shape the way forward?
Yeah, great question. So we're now just standing by to see whether we find if Governor Abbott and Texas DPS and our Rangers find any of those that are actually hiding here in Texas, because they are gaveling in again on Friday at 1 p.m. Today we received 94, and we have to receive 100 to have a quorum. So we just need 6 more representatives. And so we have until Friday to achieve that 6. If that is not the case, I think moving forward, we may see arrests. We may see more antics by Crockett and by Gavin Newsom and others across this nation. Here at TPPF, all we're doing is typically we don't get into politics. We do get into civics and we get into good policy. And so we've been, a lot of people have actually reached out to us in terms of whether this is good policy or not, whether what should be happening inside the quorum itself. And so we're here to be a backbone for the Constitution, whether that is going to be the Texas Constitution or the U.S. Constitution, on what constitutionally we must do, and then educating the public on what redistricting is, why it is certainly necessary, based off of the census and so forth. And so that's what we're doing. We're here trying to, cut through all the nonsense that we're seeing throughout media to try to lay claim exactly what is the truth.
Ammon Blair, what's your thought or outlook on if things don't happen in Texas, what happens to the rest of the country?
Yeah, to be honest, if it doesn't happen in Texas, we're going to start seeing other governors make good on their promises. Whether that's Gavin Newsom, whether it's in Illinois, you're going to see them doing other things to make it so that way we as citizens are subordinate to their agenda. Whether that's subordination to illegal aliens, as I mentioned earlier, whether that's subordination to the rule of law, and then also our duties and our rights as citizens to the voting process. And so if they themselves also start enacting redistricting themselves based off of the 2021 census and then also the 2023 ACS, just like what this map was created based off of, they'll start doing the same thing, and then it'll create quite a havoc, and then maybe eventually all lead to a Supreme Court outside of the state Supreme Courts. Now, we just saw a great win for the state of Florida. The state of Florida just won that case a couple of weeks ago, where the Democrats said the same thing, that it was unconstitutional, that it was based off of race, and they came back and was clear that it was not based off of race, that it couldn't be based off of race under the Equal Protections Clause. And so Governor DeSantis and his great leadership there in Florida had a major victory. And those of us in states that are seeing this clearly can lean on that victory in the Florida the Florida Supreme Court and going forward from here.
Outstanding. Now, Ammon, let everybody know how they can follow you and all the work you're doing at TPP with Chuck DeVore and how they can, support if they can.
Sure. If everyone can go to texaspolicy.com, you can see myself, my colleague, Celine Rodriguez. We work directly underneath Mr. DeVore. Which is kind of a nice trio since all three of us are also prior military. So it's kind of an odd duck here in the
think tank world.
In the think tank world, to have three prior service military in one coalition. So that's where you guys can find us, is there, and then our social media platforms.
Outstanding. Well, thanks for your service to the country. Thanks for your service to Texas, and thanks for being here tonight, sir.
All right. Thank you, sir, for having me.
You bet. And amigos, right now, your calls, 833-482-5337. Will this spread across the country? Are people going to start, jumping ship? And by that people, I mean Democrats. Are Democrats in blue states going to start trying to hold their citizens hostage by trying to redistrict congressional maps as an act of political rebellion against what Texas is constitutionally doing in their state? I want to know your thoughts on this and everything else we're discussing. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
After the guest leaves every night and we're doing open phones, kind of at the heartbeat of America, and you sit there in this radio studio and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Open phones across America. I'm going to get to your calls right now. I'm a little out of breath because during the break, I curl my dumbbells just to make sure the coffee flows right. So I stay awake. Anyway, I want to go to the calls. And, of course, this is Open Phone America. And the idea dates back to 1978 when Larry King was taking over this time slot from Long John Nebel. And he put in this Open Phone America idea of talking to people about everything and anything on his overnight show. And Jim Bohannon, the late, great Jim Bohannon, carried on that tradition, being Larry King's news guy, and then becoming the amazing broadcaster and host of this program. And now you and me, you and I have an opportunity to continue the legacy, and we're going to do it with somebody who's been there right from the beginning. Gil, who's normally in Manila, Philippines. Tonight he's in San Antonio, Texas, calling us on KLIF, streaming the show. Gil, go right ahead.
Yes, if you recall, a few months ago, you had a contest to get a nickname for Congresswoman Crockett.
Oh, yes.
And I entered the following. It went like this. Davy Crockett, king of the wild frontier. Jasmine Crockett, queen of the trans and queer.
Gil, I think you have taken the cake here. I think ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner. Gil from Manila, who's in Texas. Gil, that was fantastic. Your voice sounds exceptional tonight. Your audio quality sounds super crystal clear. I'm glad you're in America. And man, the originality there. I think you get points for everything. You get the golden ticket. You're going to Los Angeles, Gil.
I have to go. I have a a heart operation tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. Really,
All right,
I
so you're
do.
busy.
I'm scheduled
Okay,
for-
well then let's take a moment
I'm gonna
and covet the prayers of a vast audience and ask everybody out there to just say a prayer for Gil and for his medical team tomorrow in your heart surgery. I really wish you Godspeed with that, Gil. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Thank you. I hope to be talking to you again soon.
Well, I hope so too. You know, I'm waiting to get some word on a friend of mine. She's my age, my neighbor growing up, and she had 2 aneurysms, one on the left side of her brain, one on the right side of her brain that were being handled today. And I don't know the outcome of it, but it's always nerve-wracking while you're waiting, you know. So you're going to have somebody on your team give us a call right away, even if you're groggy. Maybe just tell somebody to call in and talk to Mr. Hinton and say, hey, he's giving us the thumbs up. He's doing well. Because I think all of America, Gil, I want you to know that you are way more popular than me. When you call into this show, my social media, I get all sorts of, I love it when Gil calls. I love it when Gil is on. So you are the rock star here.
Well, you know, sometime I'll tell you about 3 months when I had my own talk show. Back when I was in prison in Mexico. So it's
all the good stuff happened when you were locked up in Mexico.
Yeah, but I think if you remember, some months ago, you had Oliver North on for a guest.
Yeah,
and I was on his show. I had been on Jim's show, Jim Bohannon's show, 3 times. I was on with Oliver North. I was even on with your friend Curtis Sliwa when before he hooked up with Kubi. He had a talk show all by himself.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's wild. Yeah, I mean, I see it. I totally see it. Thank God that you're in retirement. Otherwise, you know, I'd have a lot to be worried about, Gil. You sing and you're a great host. That's like it's a tough combo right there.
Well, I could never compete with you. You're much quicker wit than I am, and
you tell better jokes.
But I do have a gift I'm going to give you. I've composed a new theme song for your show in Spanish.
Here we go.
When I get out of when I'm a little better shape, I'll perform it for you.
I love it. I love it. Gil, thank you, brother. I got to hit the break right here, but excellent. Folks, you're not getting this anywhere else. You're not getting Gil with his composition on Jasmine Crockett anywhere else. Gil, you are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Thanks for calling, my brother. Godspeed to you, and I wish you nothing but the best in your surgery tomorrow, sir. All right. I think we lost Gil. Not like that. I think his call dropped. All right, amigos, we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. It's Rich Valdez keeping you company here on the airwaves during the nighttime. We are live. We are national. It's a pleasure and a blessing to be with you. And check this out. The House Oversight Committee has now subpoenaed the Clintons as part of their Epstein probe. Now, again, I don't have a crystal ball. I'm just a stickler for history. And I say Hillary might come in because she spent, I don't know, what was it, days, weeks, months in hearings with Trey Gowdy on the Benghazi stuff. She didn't shy away from that. She dealt with that head on. So I would say she might likely do the same here. But at that time, she had political aspirations, so she wanted to keep her name clean. Now, she might just be like, F you very much. No, thank you. I'm good. I don't know what she's going to do. I could tell you for certain who's not going to come in. Slick Willie, the president, Bill Jefferson Clinton, or as the great one Mark Levin calls him, B.J. Clinton. And President B.J. Clinton will not be coming in because why? Very, very simple. He's a former president. He doesn't have to. Now, they're going to say, well, we could hold you in contempt of Congress. What's he going to say? All right, go ahead. What are you going to do? Put leg irons on me and arrest me like you did Navarro and the others? Nobody's going to do that. I don't believe they're going to do that. So he's not going to go, and the main reason he's not going to go because he has immunity, and he can't plead the fifth, or he wouldn't want to plead the fifth, and he doesn't want to be in the public eye. If he did, he'd do more public events. So my intuition says we don't get to see President Clinton. Maybe we get to see Hillary Clinton. I don't know. I want your thoughts. Am I wrong? Am I, is it blowing out your blowhole, Valdez? I don't know. I'd love to know your thoughts on this. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. But just a quick bit on this. The House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, the chairman, James Comer, he's from Kentucky. You've seen him on TV a million times. He's issued subpoenas to the Department of Justice and a number of high-profile former former government officials, including former President Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. And his members are now pressing for probes into the matters that are surrounding convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I don't know if Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of being a sex offender. I think he was. I think the charges of trafficking are bigger than sex offender. But anyway, I'm splitting hairs here. The subpoenas come after members of a subcommittee last month voted on a bipartisan basis to subpoena the DOJ for the, quote, full, complete, unredacted Epstein files, with 3 Republicans joining the Democrats to subpoena the 10 former U.S. officials with the Republican-led motion that was approved by a voice vote. So there you have that. Now, in a letter from the Attorney General Pam Bondi, James Comer is asking to uncover and publicly disclose the additional information related to Epstein and the Maxwell case. So we'll see how this thing goes down. Again, I don't have a lot of hope for this. I've done this long enough to know August is a tough month. So is July. A lot of people are on vacation. The kids are out of school. Congress is not in session. So for people to keep their name in your mouth, they come up with all sorts of things to talk about, like Jasmine Crockett calling El Trompito a POS, right? She'll do anything to grab a headline. Everybody's doing something to grab a headline because this is where it's slim pickings, and you've got a better chance. The gatekeepers, instead of, you try that during, October, when you're a month away from some sort of election. People are going to be like, you kidding me? Get out of here. I got no time for that. But you do it in August or July, and people are like, really? Get out. Tell me more. Right? Because there's nothing else going on. And they get around very quickly. And what do I mean by that? Just when you drive around in the summer, you don't get stuck behind the school bus as much. Right? I find I don't even get stuck behind garbage trucks that much. Things are nice during the summer. Everything is kind of smooth. Then comes that first week, second week in September. Oh, boy. Boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. Then we have a problem, Houston. Anyway, we are going to continue our conversation for most of our affiliates in Radioland. But for some of you, this may be the end of the road. And if it is, I say take care. God bless you, America. And hasta la próxima. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Tuesday night edition of the program. We're live, we're national. It's a blessing to be here. We're back for another hour. Let me give you the phone number if you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation. Here's the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And earlier, I was telling you about how 54% of Americans believe that the Obama administration committed crimes against President Trump. That's not me saying that. I'm not making up, funny numbers over here. This is an actual story that I was looking at. This poll that was conducted by Rasmussen, asking 3 questions, found that 54% consider it likely that Obama's team committed serious crimes. 37% consider it very likely. And on the other side, you had 41% that don't think it's likely, and 28% who answered not likely at all. So the odds are against former President Obama and his administration when it comes to making stuff up about El Trompito to stop him from being president and to sabotage his presidency. Talk about political dirty tricks. This is, I think, chief among them. And so many interesting things come from this. Like, how do we prevent it from happening again? I guess it opens up a bigger question to what does accountability look like? How do we actually make people accountable for their actions? And again, I think that sometimes our view, and maybe it's my view, right? I'm willing to step back and say maybe my view is misguided. Maybe I have been jaded by my years in the New Jersey swamp and in others that I'm so used to seeing the bad guys get away with stuff that I'm thinking, that can't happen. I also felt that it was going to be difficult. I remember talking to Tom Homan. Let me back up a little bit. I remember seeing a video of these Venezuelan migrants in the shelter when they left the Roosevelt Hotel. And one of them was about to be arrested by NYPD, and you had 7 cops that went in there to arrest this guy. And he basically told them, no, I'm not going with you. And they were really taking it easy, and look, we don't want to do that. And it got very physical, and like a little scuffle, or funny word, kerfuffle kind of broke out there. And my initial reaction was, this isn't going to be as easy as many people think. With 20 million illegal aliens in this country, it's going to be very difficult to deport 20 million people, not only financially, just literally, physically finding them, getting them. And we've seen that to be true, right? Look at the likes of the human trafficking Kilmar Obrego Garcia, known links to the MS-13 gang, and you've got congressmen going to visit this guy and kiss his ring in prison in El Salvador, begging for him to come home, suing left and right to make sure Congress people pushing ICE officers out of the way to demand entry into ICE detention centers. So I think I was right. It's not easy, but I will say I stand corrected, or at least I feel better, right? Encouraged. When we talked with Tom Homan, and he said, we have ways of doing this, and we will use, very like strategic strike force type teams. We're going to go in, we're going to get them, we're going to go. And I think we've been seeing that. So that's not the approach for everybody. That's the approach for the violent criminal aliens. But at the end of the day, it became, it is a task, right, where they have to use the big, beautiful bill to bring in all these new Border Patrol people in order to get the best people, former military, former law enforcement. They're giving a $50,000 signing bonus. So I look at that and I say, man, this is not going to be easy to do. And it's also not going to be easy to prosecute all these swamp people. And I'm not trying to be a voice of contradiction or a wet blanket. I'm trying to raise a point in that we want to make our goals legitimate ones, right? And I think that's why President Trump, in his wisdom, doesn't go out there and say, we're going after every last person, because I think he realizes this is a lift that at this moment is not even a possible lift. We're going after those that are the biggest threat, national security threats, public safety threats, and that makes a lot of sense. And in much the same way, we have to find the right court that is going to allow this prosecution to happen. Yesterday, we heard about a grand jury being impaneled. Where are they impaneling this grand jury? Well, some say Florida. Others say they might be doing it in Virginia in what they call the rocket docket, which moves quickly. I don't know the answer to that question. I haven't gotten the scoop on that. But I would have to say I can guarantee it can't be D.C. Because even with an aggressive, experienced former judge of a prosecutor like Judge Jeanine Pirro, and she is terrific, they're still going to give her a hard way to go. And you have D.C. judges, a D.C. jury, and everybody else from the swamp that's running the show. So it remains to be seen how we handle this stuff moving forward. But I feel like it's a false equivalency, right? You know, the logical definition of a false equivalency when we, or a logical fallacy. When we say things like we can't move forward if we don't get this type of retribution, right? If we don't get this type of accountability of putting people in prison. And again, I'm not advocating against it. I would love, I've seen it happen, right? I saw a bunch of politicians get locked up when Chris Christie was governor of New Jersey. But before he was governor of New Jersey, he was the United States attorney, a position most recently held by Alina Habba, President Trump's lawyer. Chris Christie was the United States attorney for the District of New Jersey, and he locked up Democrat politicians, Republican politicians. He locked up everybody, kicking butt and taking names. He made himself a lot of enemies, and he made himself a lot of fans, which is why he was elected governor twice, because the public liked him. They thought he was a tough guy, plain-spoken tough guy. And I bring that up to say, you know, you can, depending on what type of crimes you're bringing to the table, you can get what you got to get. But bringing John Brennan and James Clapper and all of these folks, oh boy, right? Oh boy, that's going to be tough. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about an area that is going a little bit smoother. And that's the area that's overseen by Secretary of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr., Bobby Kennedy. Secretary Kennedy, he's out there every other day with a new video, a new announcement, talking about rolling back vaccines, talking about food dyes and how those more and more corporations are agreeing to end those, some ahead of schedule, putting in all these new regulations in place to make Americans healthier and to limit the iron grip that Big Pharma and the Big Pharma lobby have on government and on industry and on so many things, including our health. So I want to talk with somebody who knows that all too well. Dr. Peter McCullough is going to be joining us momentarily. He's a physician, cardiologist, epidemiologist, chief scientific officer at the Wellness Company, and president of the McCullough Foundation. And we're going to talk about his book, Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
right. But you're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Vaccine experts are saying that their worst fears have come true. And that's because a committee that you may never have heard of, who makes vaccine recommendations for the country, was just fired and replaced with an entirely different group by Health Secretary and vaccine skeptic Robert F. Kennedy Jr. All of the vaccines that you see, whether it's measles or polio or the COVID vaccine or the flu vaccine, go through review by this committee called the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, or we call it just ACIP. They look at all of the data, review the evidence, review the safety concerns if there are any, and decide who should get the vaccine.
Who should get the vaccine is really the question that we're asking here. And again, vaccine proponents, they're unhappy right now. People like me that are not really super pro-vaccine, guess what? Not too shabby. I want to get to the bottom of this and everything else that's going on, as well as the book that everybody's talking about and everybody should get 2 copies of. The book is called Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality. It's written by the renowned physician, Dr. Peter McCullough, and he's with us now. Dr. McCullough, welcome.
Thank you.
A man of many words. So, Doc, we got 20 minutes. Let's get into the book. Let's get into your thoughts on Secretary Kennedy and if you think he's doing the right thing here.
Well, that advisory panel that you had on that clip, the advisory panel for Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices, the old panel was fired. The new panel was installed, and they basically just approved the whole vaccine schedule like the old panel. So the idea that, well, you know, scientists have the worst nightmares, there's no nightmares because it's the same vaccine schedule that was advanced. The only change was to eliminate just the 4% of the flu shots that contain mercury.
Got it. So you're saying this is an insignificant impact?
Yeah, well, it's just the same, you know, same set of vaccines, same schedule approved. Now, the FDA had dropped some recommendations for healthy children and pregnant women to take the COVID shots, but they're still available if they want to take them. But you know, even that FDA manuscript in New England Journal of Medicine said a third of Americans, you know, should be taking COVID shots, and that's not happening. It's probably fewer than 5% of people are taking COVID shots now. So RFK and HHS, FDA, they're still out of touch with what's going on with vaccines.
Well, tell us what is going on. You literally wrote the book on this stuff, Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality. In the best you can, give us some of the mythology, some of the ideology, some of the reality, and tell us what's really going on.
Well, we went back in history to ask the question, how in the world did we get into this predicament with the COVID-19 vaccines? It seems like almost everyone lost their minds over these vaccines. And what we had found, not surprisingly, is history does tend to, you know, closely repeat itself or even rhyme. And, you know, we went all the way back to 1721, Boston. Cotton Mather, a Puritan minister, became such an enthusiast for what's called variolation. It's the very first form of smallpox vaccine, him and Dr. Boylston. And Cotton Mather proclaimed that this method was a gift from God. A gift from God, 1721. Now, Cotton Mather also served as an advisor to the judges in the Salem witchcraft trials. So he also believed in witches.
Wow.
I mean, that's how this thing starts out. And then it goes on from there. And, you know, the overriding theme, century by century, is that from the very beginning, vaccines were a part of medical science with a tremendous amount of hubris, arrogance. Man was trying to improve upon God's creation, that there was always a lot of fear because people were fearful of infectious diseases, a lot of power and money. And when you take those 4 things and mix them together, boy, it just looked like whether it was the 18th century or right up to Pfizer and Moderna in the COVID vaccine era, it's the same.
So back in the 1700s or late 1700s, this gentleman, Cotton Mather, he believed that the first vaccine inoculation that they came up with for was a gift from God. Did I hear that right?
That's correct. He thought it had religious significance. And, you know, on the cover
the same guy
of
with the
book,
witches.
Right. And in our cover of our book, listen to this. We take a papal coin from during the pandemic era, and it's a picture of a boy on this 20-euro coin issued by the Vatican. And it's a boy about ready to receive the Eucharist. But instead of receiving the body and blood of Christ, he's receiving the COVID-19 vaccine.
This is a real papal coin?
Yes, it's on the cover of our book. It's a real coin.
That's crazy.
Yeah, we also point out in our book we found a church in Christchurch, New Zealand, South Island, and it had a huge banner over the front of it. It said, "Not even the blood of Jesus Christ can save you. Get vaccinated."
Wow. And this is coming from a church.
Yeah. So you can see what's happened. You know, Biden had an entire program during the COVID pandemic. He poured a tremendous amount of money into this. It was called Faith for Vaccines. And it was the U.S. government working with church leaders to try to push the COVID-19 vaccine.
Sounds like a front for lobbying them and sending them cash and other stuff so that they'd be on board.
That's what happened. The COVID Community Corps program was essentially a $1 billion transfer into media, faith groups, sports teams, and the list goes on and on. It was essentially the largest bribe in human history to try to bribe people into taking the COVID vaccine.
Wow. And clearly, this isn't a new problem because you're dating it back to the late 1700s where you had these very conflicted people doing all sorts of crazy stuff. So this is fascinating. I love the title of the book. And of all the books I've seen on the COVID-19 vaccine, this one has a very unique approach. And the title is really it, right? Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality. And I see how you're getting into some of the mythology. We have like a minute and a half left here, and then a whole other segment to talk about ideology and reality. But putting a pin in the mythology part, Doc, I think that this didn't die back in the days. It seems to still kind of be there. This kind of like blind faith in vaccines.
Well, think about the COVID shots. So everybody listening here lived through this time. The COVID vaccines had 1 month where the shot 1 and shot 2 were given, and then 2 months of observation, and then they were approved and released December 10th, 2020. When they were released and people were asked to take the vaccine, no one could have known what would happen on month 4 and 5 and 6. No one. The COVID vaccines were taken on faith, not based on science.
Wild. Very, very wild stuff. Folks, the book is Mythology, Ideology, and Reality. Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality. The author is Dr. Peter McCullough. Dr. McCullough, again, is the Chief Medical Officer Chief Scientific Officer, at the Wellness Company. You may have seen him on TV with Dr. Drew there. And he's also president of the McCullough Foundation. So, amigos, keep it locked right here. We're going to come back and continue our discussion with Dr. McCullough on his book and everything else related to vaccines and their ideology and reality. Keep it locked right here. I'm Rich Valdez.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I couldn't be more pleased to announce that as of today, the COVID vaccine for healthy children and healthy pregnant women has been removed from the CDC recommended immunization schedule. Last year, the Biden administration urged healthy children to get yet another COVID shot despite the lack of any clinical data to support the repeat booster strategy in children.
That is Secretary Kennedy again talking about removing them from the HHS schedule. And I want to continue talking about vaccines with our guest. Our guest is Dr. Peter McCullough. He has written the book. Hold on, don't go anywhere. I got the title right in front of me. Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality. And we're talking about the ideology and reality of what's going on with these vaccines. Dr. McCullough, let's pick up where you left off.
Well, I'll just respond to that clip. Pregnant women and children can still get a COVID-19 vaccine. Just if it's not recommended by the CDC, it doesn't mean they can't get them. And the government is paying the full freight for these vaccines. Now, USA Facts, which takes the CDC tabular data, a very good source of information, reveals that, let's say, children under age 2, which people were really concerned about giving genetic vaccines that young, turns out only 6% of children took at least one shot, and only 2% of children, actually 2.5% of children had 2 shots. So parents didn't go through with vaccinating their kids for COVID-19 anyway. So I've never thought it was appropriate to vaccinate healthy people for COVID-19. And as the data rolled out very quickly, we saw large numbers of people dying with COVID-19 vaccine, even in the vaccine center. So it became clear that vaccines weren't safe for human use. And that was known literally within days or weeks after release. Pfizer had collected 1,223 deaths with the COVID-19 vaccine in their 90-day safety dossier. And they were holding that back for the public for the longest time.
Wow. Now, let's take that apart for a second, because Dr. McCullough, I remember you and a handful of other physicians that were out there saying these things, and including Kennedy. And a lot of people got in a lot of trouble. You know, they came after a lot of people and tried to silence a lot of people. What type of backlash did you receive when you were saying things like that?
I initially testified under oath in the Texas Senate, and then came under investigation from the American Board of Internal Medicine, and then, had a lot of pushback. People didn't want to hear the bad news that the COVID-19 vaccines were not safe and they weren't working. But our government was telling us that. By April of 2021, Anthony Fauci came out and said, listen, the vaccines aren't working. We're going to need boosters. I mean, that should have told you something. If you took shots in January and February of 2021, and by April you're told you need a booster, that should tell you it's not working. And then Rochelle Lewinsky, CDC director, came out in August of 2021, and she said the vaccines don't stop spread of infection.
Yeah, I remember
that.
That
should tell you right there. We don't need any mandates. We chronicle all this in our book, and despite these clear messages, the Biden administration went ahead and said, employers with over 100 employees have to give the vaccine, even after the vaccine was grossly failing. And ultimately, this went to the Supreme Court, and as you know, that these got knocked down. In fact, it was my testimony and that of Jay Bonachar that went to the Supreme Court. And, from the beginning, the smartest people out there were the ones who didn't take the vaccine. And so we have about 19% of Americans who haven't taken any COVID shots at all. And they're the ones right now. It's the unvaccinated that are most concerned about those who took the shots. Yeah,
totally. It's I was one of those. I have no foresight, no wisdom, no anything. I don't like vaccines, period. I just don't like them. It's not mercury. It's not conspiracy. I've just never liked them. I had 2 little girls, and I gave them the same shots that they gave me when I was little. And when they were like 14 or 15, the doctor was like, oh, it's time for their shots. And I was like, I never took shots when I was 15 years old. I'm not giving my kids any more shots at 15. They were like, oh, you got to do that. And I was like, I think you're full of it. You sound like a salesman, not like a doctor. And that was where I left it. And it was for that reason that I didn't take any vaccines for myself. But fast forward.
I'll just say I broadly accepted them. I took all the vaccines. My mom took me in for more vaccines. I went to a jungle in India. I took more vaccines. I had counted up the number of vaccine doses I've had in my life. It was 69. Wow. I had 69 shots. 40 of them were flu shots, which became a requirement to be on hospital staff. So, I broadly accepted them. I never had any complications from vaccines, but, just
Did you get sick when you took the flu shot?
Well, no, but what happened to me with the flu shot, which has been shown in randomized trials, is you have some slight protection against getting flu, but you're more likely to get the common cold. So if you saw me on Fox News, I was on prime time, over a couple hundred times. I was always sick all the time. And I think it was probably from taking flu shots. No, and I finally stopped taking them in 2021. Now I'm healthy again. I'm just not getting sick all the time.
Yeah, I learned that with my dad. My dad was kind of sick in his older years, and every time I took him for the flu shot, he'd get sick.
Yeah.
That or the pneumonia vaccine. And I was like, all right, hold on a second. If I don't give it to him, he doesn't get sick. We're good.
Right.
And I stopped taking it.
What we've found is with every vaccine, there are theoretical benefits and there are these real risks. Like, let me give you an example. And the reality of this is the vaccines have lowered these rates of these communicable diseases. So, for example, chickenpox vaccine clearly has reduced the kids getting chickenpox. Now, I had that as a kid. I don't know if you did.
Me too. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, but my kids didn't have chickenpox because they had the chickenpox vaccine. But there's no free lunch in medicine. So now our kids, as adults, face higher rates of getting shingles. 5 studies show that. So, you don't get childhood chickenpox, but then you face getting shingles. Now there's a shingles vaccine. You get more exposure to this varicella, partially killed virus. And for every one of these, there is risk. So let me give an example. The flu shot, of which I took 40 of them. It says right there in the package insert, in a boxed warning, may cause Guillain-Barré syndrome, may cause permanent paralysis that you can be on a ventilator or it can take your life. Let me tell you.
Did you just ignore that, or you didn't believe it?
I just didn't read it. They didn't hand it to me. I just didn't think about it like most everybody else who takes a flu shot. And I had to take it to be on medical staff. But let me tell you, to me, researching this, the line is we should never have somebody who's perfectly healthy go in and take a shot and then become permanently disabled or dead. That is absolutely unacceptable. We go from health to disabled or dead. Now, people say, well, that's very rare. So, I'm sorry. If it happens once, it's too many. It's simply too many.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Folks, we're on with Dr. Peter McCullough. He's the author of the book, Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality. And, Doc, do you have a couple more minutes to do one more segment with us? Because I have a few more questions, and it's a fascinating conversation. But if you got to go, I understand.
No, I can.
All right, so stick around, folks. We're coming right back with Dr. Peter McCullough. We're getting the skinny on this. Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality. Don't move a muscle.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I'm not a Republican, but I listen to you because you speak moderately and reasonably and softly and decently, and I really appreciate that.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, coming to your calls right now, but we're going to finish with Dr. Peter McCullough. And now, Dr. Pete, if I may call you that, this is fascinating, this book, and the way you've put it together. Again, the book we're discussing is his book, Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality. I want to finish on this last point about reality. I think we've talked about mythology and ideology, and you've touched on some of the reality, but I want you to take it home for us and give people, a real reason to buy 2 copies of the book, one for them to read on the beach for the rest of August, and one to give away to a friend.
It's meticulously cited, and so we simply lay out the history here with no agenda, and I think people can read it for themselves. The development of vaccines all the way through, for each one of the vaccines, started with a tremendous fear of the disease, bold claims that could not be supported by the science in hand. In fact, early on, they didn't even know what caused these diseases. What we've learned is that the majority of diseases all declined in frequency and mortality by over 90% before the vaccines ever came in. So polio was on its way out before the vaccines. Same with measles, mumps, and rubella. Now, the vaccines did reduce the frequency of these diseases. There's no doubt about it. But the vaccines are not free of side effects. And the single greatest concern that exists now among young parents today is autism. This is very important. The CDC is reporting we're in an autism epidemic now, that we have 1 in 31 children have autism. And this is serious autism that, the CDC at the network centers, that means 3.2% of children. Now, when I was a kid, it was 1 in 10,000. Now it's 1 in 31. Heavily vaccinated California, 5% of children have autism. 5%. Of the kids with autism, 27% have profound autism. That means IQ less than 55, can't speak, screaming, head banging, wearing diapers, can't use the bathroom. That means over 1% of California children are essentially invalids for the rest of their lives.
This is scary. Very, very scary number. Now, again, I do radio. You do medicine and research. It seems to me clear as day that the more vaccines we have, the more incidences of autism we have. Does that seem fair?
They're ecologically going up, meaning as the vaccines have gone up, the neuropsychiatric disorders have gone up. That's attention deficit disorder, autism, seizures, and tics. But also allergic diseases have gone up, food allergies, asthma, etc. When we were kids, we ate peanut butter all the time. You couldn't even bring in peanuts in elementary school today. So what we know about this is it's been grossly understudied, but it looks like these big batteries of vaccines are probably a risk factor because they're given in these vulnerable periods in childhood where there's immunologic and neurologic development, that the vaccines may have gone too far. And now we're experiencing these chronic childhood problems. And our children, and RFK is right about this, our children today are not nearly as healthy as we were when we were kids.
What's the solution?
We need immediate study. We need randomized trials of children skipping all the vaccines. We're up to about 10% of children in the Florida Medicaid system, as an example, take no vaccines, 10%. Now a recent report in JAMA suggests only 40% of expecting parents are going to take the full vaccine schedule. 60% are going to delay them or decline some of them. Think about it. Diphtheria and pertussis, we treat that with a Z-Pack. I've never even tested anybody for those. Right. They're legacy diseases. Polio, we haven't had polio in the water supply in the Western Hemisphere for decades. And we've got a very good polio surveillance program in the water because it comes through contaminated water. So the bottom line is we don't have the infectious disease threats of, centuries ago.
We have a vaccine threat.
Right. And we may have actually gone too far with these vaccines. Clearly with the COVID vaccines, brand new synthetic genetic vaccines, no way to turn them off. Very dangerous, heart damage, blood clots. It's been a disaster. Nobody wants to talk about it in the administrations, but it's been an absolute disaster.
Yeah, 100%. I hear that. Dr. Peter McCullough, I want to thank you for being here and dropping some truth bombs on us. Let everybody know how they can learn more about the work that you're doing and follow you.
Well, go to McCullough Foundation, www.mcculloughfnd.org. That supports our work, important work in the media and policy. I've testified in the Senate and the House multiple times. And follow me on social media, P_McCullough MD. Got the Top Doctor account on Twitter, doctors who, real doctors who see patients. And I'm the most published person for solutions in COVID-19, the acute treatments for COVID-19, and now what to do if you've taken one of the vaccines. Go to the Wellness Company, twc.health/courage. Check out our products, including the Ultimate Spike Detox, which most people need who've taken the vaccine.
Well, Doc, I want to thank you. I want to thank you and some of your colleagues that I've had on the show a few times, like Dr. Robert Malone and Dr. Jay Bhattacharya and now yourself, who've had the courage to stand up to your own colleagues who are not, following the science per se, because people's lives are at stake, and this is really important work. Thank you for being here, folks. Check out McCulloughFND.org and check out the book, Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality. Doc, it was a pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. And amigos, we're going to get to your calls right now. Don't go anywhere. Tampa, Florida, coming in right now. Debbie in Canton, Ohio, you're up next. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, to the phones we go. Debbie, Canton, Ohio, WEOL. You're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Hi, Rich. I'm actually listening to WNIR.
Oh, very nice. WNIR. We love them. Go right ahead.
Oh, yeah. I know you love them. I love them, too. I just wanted to tell you that in my neighborhood, just a few blocks from where I live, they picked up 7 or 8 men that were prostituting women. They got them. They caught them. I'm so happy they did.
Mm-hmm.
There was a sting operation going on because they weren't really talking to girls. They got guys on the phone that, portrayed to be girls, and they caught them.
Wow.
And I know. It's so awesome. They caught him. But one of them was an undocumented person. Okay. I don't know. He's undocumented, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. He shouldn't have been here. But the majority of them live right here in our neighborhood. Okay.
Look at that. Well, sometimes, like they say, lightning strikes twice, and you get lucky. You get both the administration's emphasis on illegal immigrants and criminal aliens combined with regular criminals, the regular criminal element that's there trafficking people, trafficking women, as you've put it. And it's a good thing, right? I think it's a great thing when you get 2 for 1, right? A twofer, like they say. Debbie, always a pleasure to hear your voice. Thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Shout out to WNIR and WEOL. We love Ohio. And let us continue. I want to go to Eduardo, Tampa, Florida, streaming the show, richvaldez.com. Go right ahead.
Yeah, good evening, Rich. I got to mention this story I saw in Daily Mail. Edward Korsenstein, 19-year-old Doge member, and President Trump is threatening to federalize D.C. I mean, just like what happened in Cincinnati, over there in Chicago where I used to live, Arnell Smith used to be, or still is, Brandon Johnson's mayor. He hit a lady with a bat because he owed her money from some drugs. So it's
Eduardo,
pretty ridiculous.
Hold on. I want to talk about this a little more, but we're going to run out of time soon, and I want to come back to it. So if you don't mind, hang on. And how much time do I have here? I got music. Joe in Lake of the Ozarks, KRMS. If you can hang on, too, I'm going to come back to you. I want to hear what you have to say as well. I got to take a pause here. It's the long pause, so it's a few minutes long. But we're going to come back with you guys momentarily. It's Rich Valdez, America at Night. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night, and God bless you. If this is the end of the road, everybody else, stick around. We're coming right back. We're going to keep doing this thing, and we're doing it live. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome back. We're back for another hour, and we're live and national. It's Tuesday night, 7 minutes past the top of the hour. I want to hear from you guys. Some of you are on hold. Thank you for that. We're going to get to your calls momentarily. 833-482-5337, 833-4Valdez. And I want to remind you, and anyone else, right? This is something I was talking about before with Mr. Good during one of the commercial breaks. And it's this. President Trump is a smart guy. During these lean news days that we have in August, that we have in July, people are always, doing all sorts of things. A million different people launch their books because they're like, hey, I can get the most media attention during this time because, people are on vacation and there's space in the media, right? I get it. And President Trump's no exception to that. Right, check this out. President Trump has made this move, and I think this is a pretty solid move. It's a smart move. He announced that Rwanda will be accepting 200 deportees from the United States. Now, this, I think, is a very good idea. Why? Well, because if you are from Cuba, if you are from, I think, from Haiti, if you're from Venezuela, I know that, you get deported, they say, we're not taking them back. We're not taking them back. Do what you want with them. Right? So now Trump has, in the past, previous administrations would go, oh, man, let's just give them special status then, and, TPS and this and that. Nope. Trump says, I just made peace between Rwanda and Congo. Somebody owes me something. Hey, guys, I need you to take a couple of hundred refugees, deportees from the United States. And voila, boom, it's done. And here it was. That's how it went down. So now Trump is announcing that Rwanda will accept 200 deportees. And now imagine that. As this news makes its way around the globe, people are going to be like, oh, if I come from a country that won't take me back, well, guess I'll stay in the United States. Guess again, you're going to end up in Rwanda. Now, I don't know if you've seen that movie, Hotel Rwanda, but it's not very hotelish, if you know what I mean. Rwanda was a war zone forever. And it literally is just calming down now. So I think these are the type of deterrents that we're going to continue to see from the president. Again, just really out-of-the-box thinking. Just like giving his press conference today or his usually next to the chopper speech. Today he did it on top of the roof of the White House. I've never seen a president on the roof of the White House. It's usually a sniper up there. Leave it to El Trompito Donaldus Magnus to get all the eyes, all the views, all the cameras, asking him, why are you on the roof, sir? And him saying, you look good from up here. It was really just funny. And again, President Trump just running circles around these people in the media. And the, oh man, hold on a second. I'm going to pause the presses here. Mr. Hinton, who does some production work for the show every day. I don't always get to this because of, pressing media news stories and whatnot, but there's a few today in history items that I want to share with you that I think are just interesting. Today in 1861, United States President Abraham Lincoln approved the first federal income tax. How dare you, Honest Abe? It was a wartime measure, and guess what? It was rescinded 11 years later in 1872. Then some other pendejo came and brought that back to life. And they should never have done that. I'm looking forward to a United States without a federal income tax. I'm not holding my breath, but I am optimistic. Let's see. In 1957 today, Dick Clark's American Bandstand began airing nationally. As a kid, I used to see that show. I don't know if I was watching reruns or the tail end of, the long series that it was. But very, very, very good show. That and another show I used to watch called Soul Train. Man, what a good show. I enjoyed these shows. And we only had a couple of different channels, so I was able to see those because they were on broadcast TV. Today in 1962, what a day, right? What a day, the 5th of August. Police arrested South African president or activist, anti-apartheid activist Nelson Mandela, saying that he incited worker strikes and left the country without permission. And it's almost like deja vu by a few months. In 1981, on today, August 5th, By executive order, United States President Ronald Reagan fired 11,359 air traffic controllers that were on strike over failed negotiations to raise their pay and shorten their work week. And he said, like El Trumpito would, "You're fired." So that's what's going on there. Now, there was a bunch of stuff going on with Charlemagne the God and El Trumpito. Maybe I'll get to that a little bit later. But I want to talk about the future of the Democrat Party. What does that future look like? Now, we played some audio the other day, right? Harry Enton, CNN data analyst, who was basically saying that there is no leader in the Democrat Party, right? That was echoed by Kamala Harris, the vice president of the United States. She went on with Stephen Colbert, and the vice president emeritus went on there just coming off of her campaign for president, saying that there is no leader of the Democrat Party. Now, I don't know why she wouldn't have said Barack Obama, herself. Who else is there? Joe Biden, right? I mean, you have all these people that could be clear leaders in the party, but she didn't mention any of them. She said there's a lot of leaders, too many to mention. That's not how leadership works, Kamala, right? It just isn't. And I want to talk about that. What happens with the future of the Democrat Party? And we're going to have a discussion about that in a little bit because I think it's important. I also want to get into, excuse me, bear with me here, friends, a couple other things, like what is the likelihood of another Kamala Harris run for president? Will Kamala Harris run again? Again, Kamala Harris means how bad you are in Spanish. So this is the nickname that I've given her, Kamala Harris. Vice President Kamala Harris, will she run again? She says she's not running for governor of California. She's not running for, seems like anything. I don't know. I would love to see her run again because, in my opinion, she's a guaranteed loser. Guaranteed. But, maybe I'm wrong. I guess it depends on who she goes against. But I don't think the Americans have an appetite for Kamala Harris again. We'll see. We'll see. And we'll see what type of musical guests she brings in this time around. So we're going to do that straight ahead with an old friend of mine, served with me in the Christie administration. I've known him for a long time. He is the secretary of the Delaware Republican Party. You've seen him on TV and radio. He writes a lot of articles. Yeah, he actually used to write a column in the Washington Times as well. He's the host of a podcast called The Brice is Right, and he's with Project 21. And we always like having their people on, right? Horace and Melanie Collette and some others, James Arps, all right? So we're going to, Christopher Arps, excuse me, we're going to connect with Brandon Brice straight ahead. But I want to give you the phone number because, of course, your calls, I know you guys are standing by. We've got folks in Arizona, folks in Florida, folks in Missouri who are going to be joining the conversation as well. So bear with me. I'm looking forward to speaking with you guys on Open Phone America. That's coming up with me, Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company live on the late night radio airwaves. Our phone number, 833-4-VALDEZ. Of course, that's Valdez with an S. Now, I want to play a clip of audio from you. You just heard from President Trump right there, and I want to give you a clip from today. President Trump was asked if he was planning on reading Kamala Harris's new book about her failed 2024 campaign. Listen to this.
The book, any plans to buy it?
I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm going to buy it. I'd love to see it. No. I'd find it. Look, I find everything in politics interesting. I sort of enjoy politics. She wasn't a skilled person. You have skilled politicians, really skilled politicians, and then you have some that aren't. And she was put in a very tough position, I think. She did have a 6-week honeymoon. They told me, the pros said, you know what, she's going to have a 6-week. And she did. She was like untouchable in terms of everybody thought great. But she didn't do any interviews or anything, which was strange. Not even friendly interviews with friendly reporters like her right there, a really friendly reporter. And you know what happened? People said, what's wrong with her? Why isn't she doing? She made a mistake. She should have done interviews. She didn't run a great campaign, but we beat Biden, and then we had to beat, nobody's beaten two. I had to beat two. That's like Dana White, the great Dana White has a fight, and he has a fighter that's getting the hell knocked out of him. They say, well, let's take him out and put somebody else in. Didn't seem fair to me at the time, but where are we? We're in the White House. So, I mean, so it worked out.
It worked out. Are you going to buy her book? No. You got to love that stuff. I want to get some reaction to this because, of course, the book is part of the bigger story about Kamala Harris and what happens from here. And to do that, I want to bring in our special guest, Brandon Brice, conservative columnist with Project 21. He's the secretary of the Delaware Republican Party. You see him on television a lot, and he's the host of a podcast called The Brice is Right. Brandon Brice, welcome, sir.
Richie Valdez, always good to be on, friend.
Thank you, brother. So let's talk about this, bro. I want to get into this with you because I know you've got a different perspective. You are in the land of Joe Biden in Delaware. And is it the same opinion that I have here in New York that Kamala Harris is a big loser and she likely isn't going to run again?
Well, here's the thing. This is a person who I agree with the president that, she was put in a bad spot. But the reality is she did absolutely nothing for the Democratic Party. She didn't move the needle. She ran a horrible campaign. I mean, and these are Democrats saying this. These aren't Republicans.
She lost African-American men.
She lost, literally not only she lost 22% of the African-American male vote, but, the race wasn't even close. And, I find it interesting if the shoe had been on the other foot, CNN would be talking about how, distant the race was and how Trump wasn't even close. The woman wasn't even close. And then, there were so many errors within her campaign where, you don't want to, literally, she mentioned not wanting to do interviews. And I'm thinking, hello, you're running against a guy that's been on TV since 1970. And so, again, you're hearing she was on Steve Colbert a few weeks back, and she said, I just decided not to run for governor. No, miss. The Democratic Party told you weren't going to run because your polls said that you couldn't win. So I just think we just need to stop lying and tell the truth that, she was a horrible candidate from the start. The reality is, whether it's her or whoever, Joe Biden still would have had the majority African-American vote. And the reality is, and I'll leave this with your listeners, Richie V, is at the end of the day, the president had the power to step down and make her president. And he didn't. So what does that tell you?
Yeah, 100% right. Brandon Brice, I look at this and I think to myself, this is a big failure. And I've seen failures like this on both sides, right? Not right now, but through recent history. I look at, when the Republican Party decided that Mitt Romney was going to be the guy to take on Barack Obama, I thought to myself, my goodness, we're going to lose, and we're going to lose spectacularly. There's no way Mitt Romney, this lackluster candidate who was very moderate and who was very similar on a lot of issues to Obama, you can't win elections without contrast, in my opinion. I think we're seeing the same thing in New York City. You've got three Democrats they're all the same. They're cookie-cutter copies of one another. And then you've got Curtis Sliwa. So I think you need contrast in order to have a real political dialogue. And that's what we had here. And at the end of the day, we the people opted with Donald Trump, saying we like his contrast better than what she was offering. So what do the Democrats do moving forward? Who steps up?
Well, it certainly isn't, Mama D or whatever his name is. I mean, the guys are, it's amazing, Rich, that, we used to joke about socialists winning cities like New York, L.A., and D.C. Well, you know what's interesting now, Rich? Mm-hmm. Now it's reality. They're actually competitive. And you ask, what happened to the Democratic Party? Well, I'll tell you what happened. The blue dog, Joe Biden, was the last of the blue dog, conservative, common sense Democrats. Now, you've got a party that clearly didn't learn from the previous elections, but you've got a party where they're literally touting AOC. They're touting, people like Rashida Tlaib, who's my, who's my congresswoman in the state that I grew up in. And these people are wackadoos. I love them dearly, but they shouldn't ever be in public office. Because you know why? Because they don't understand what everyday Americans go through. And this is the problem where clearly the Democrats didn't learn, and they're more focused on, somebody's pronouns, or they're more focused on, who can go in what bathroom, than things like putting people back to work, actually educating children so that they can read. And so, I mean, when you think about it, you may not like the Trumpster, but the reality is most Americans deep down inside feel comfortable. You know why they feel comfortable? Because it's common sense policy. And it's something that, unfortunately, Rich, the Democrats are still living in la-la land. I was watching CNN the other night. Mm-hmm. And, you and I both served in the administration in New Jersey. And one of our old good friends, Cory Booker, has all this recently fire in the belly. Okay, clearly, let's cut the crap. The guy wants to be president. Let's just stop messing around. And here's the reality. All of this fire in the belly, but what has he done? You know what he's done? He's done what every other U.S. senator does when they get an opportunity. It's all talk. Where's the action? He's been talking the same song around education, and yet education is there's still schools throughout New Jersey that are struggling because they won't challenge the status quo.
Well, you know what? I want to talk about that when we return. Brandon Brice is with us from Project 21, and we're going to talk about what does the future of the Democrat Party look like in this leaderless environment. We're going to have to name a few leaders for them if they won't come up with them on their own. Brandon Brice, stick with me. Amigos, we're coming right back. Your calls and more coming up. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez.
No hair, no care, and live on the air, it's Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez. Again, we're getting to your calls momentarily. We're about to just wrap up with Brandon Brice, and then we're going to all of the guys that are on hold. Thank you for your patience. 833-482-5337. And Brandon Brice, a couple of nights ago, Harry Enton, the chief data analyst at CNN, said that the Democrat Party's brand is garbage. Check this out.
Democrats at this point are historically divided. It is a complete and utter mess. It is messier than a hoarder's basement. What are we talking about here? The national early poll leader, 25% plus. Normally, that's where Democrats are. Biden was at 25% plus in 2020. Hillary Clinton was in 08 and 16. Gore was in 00 and 04. At this particular point, there is no one in the Democratic race for president who's polling at 25% plus. The water is quite warm. If you're a Democrat potentially thinking about running in 2028, jump right in, because at this point, there is no front runner.
What do you think Is that because how people view the Democratic Party right now, is that contributing to this?
Yeah, I think that is in large part of what's going on, is one of the reasons why there is no front runner. Nobody wants to put anybody up at the top of their ballot list is because at this particular point.
Nobody wants to put their name on a ballot. Nobody wants to become the front runner. Brandon Brice, do you agree with Harry Enton?
I do. I mean, I think, Rich is no front runner because there's no message. When you run, you got to have a message. And I'm sorry, but everything being about DEI and trans and all this other stuff, I mean, you're talking about these are not issues that most of middle America cares about. You know what they care about? They care about putting food on their table. They care about sending their kids to a quality school and making sure that their kids don't get bullied or don't have to deal with gang activity. They care about, being safe at night when they walk, whether they walk their dog or they want to take a midnight stroll and not get knocked upside the head in Central Park. That's what people care about. And it's the reality, whether you like this president or not, those things that I just named, they're priority on his list. They're not talking about, all of this gender stuff and all of this, pronouns and all this stuff that at the end of the day, 90% of Americans clearly don't care about. They care about pocketbook issues. And for some reason, the Democrats haven't quite figured out how to touch bases with middle America and the common American.
Let me ask you this, because I don't know if it's the Democrats haven't figured it out, or is it that the Democrats can't talk about that? Because think about this. If you're a Democrat, right, and you're not Elizabeth Warren, who's right now is saying that she's supporting the guy in New York, Mamdani, or AOC, who's talking about, all the crazy stuff that she talks about, or Jasmine Crockett, who's, saying Trump is a POS and come and lock me up and all this other craziness. If you're not one of those, who are you? Elisa Slotkin? What's she talking about? She's talking about how radical the AOCs and the rest of them are. But what's she doing for the party? Is she going to say, listen, my plan for America is tariffs, because tariffs are going to generate income for our treasury where we might be able to get rid of the Federal Reserve? She's not saying that. Is there any Democrat that could talk to any of the policies and outdo the policies of Donald Trump?
No. I mean, here's the catch, Rich. I mean, we're in a state where the Democrats have completely sold out the American people. The Democratic Party has become, if you really want to be honest, it's really a socialist movement. That's what they are. You can't get around it. And the reality is none of, their message is not resonating with the average voter. I'll give you this. There was this whole concept, Rich, about, a few years back, defunding the police. Well, the problem is they didn't actually ask the people who lived in the Gary, Indiana, the South Side of Chicago, the East New York, East New York, Brooklyns.
Right,
they didn't
Detroit,
ask those
Baltimore.
folks. Did the Detroits, the Baltimores, the Phillies? Did they ask those folks in those communities to defund the police? I don't think so. And so it's interesting is they're saying a whole lot, Rich, but they're not saying much. Again, I watched the Steve Colbert show when Kamala Harris was on the show, and he asked her a very simple question. He said, who's the leader of the Democratic Party? Now, Rich, you and I both know the vice president of the United States gets intel before most to 90% of any American, and you're trying to tell me that this woman who served 4 years as the vice president of these United States, who gets intel before anyone from the CIA, or at one time did, you're trying to tell me she can't tell you who is the leader of her party? Guess what? There isn't a leader of the party because they have no message. And at the end of the day, what she did give Steve Colbert was a bunch of talk and air dust. That's what she gave him.
Who do you think the runners-up are? Who's going to try and make a way? Is Jasmine Crockett really going to try and make a ticket with AOC?
Well, I think Jasmine Crockett would have probably a better shot on the Breakfast Club. I mean, I've heard they need somebody. Jess Hilarious isn't funny. Maybe put Jazz Crockett in the lineup. But, here's the other part. I mean, Cory Booker clearly wants to be president. I'm not sure if folks are really taking him seriously because, again, who's the real Cory Booker? That's a whole other topic. But, I mean, you got Gretchen Whitmer, my former state, the Great Lakes state. I think she's probably your runner-up. Why? Because she's a Democrat who actually met with Trump. Keep that in mind. Check. She has proven that she can work with other Republicans. Check. She comes from a swing state. Check. And she's tall and she's attractive. I mean, I think, if you want to actually win back the White House, Gretchen is a serious contender. I think Gavin Newsom, who we all know was Joe Biden's favorite, that guy's done. I think Buttigieg has to figure out what state he wants to live in. That guy's done. Cory Booker, we don't really know who the real Cory Booker is. That guy's done. Folks, at the end of the day, we've got one person standing, and that's Big Gretch. And you know who gave her the name Big Gretch? Tell her
Brandon
go
Brice.
fake Donald Trump.
No, I think it was you. Brandon
I
Brice.
think it was me.
Let's back up a little bit now. Let's talk about 2028 because Donald Trump weighed in on that. He did an interview and he was talking about, for the first time, he's talking about 2028, and he basically said, "Well, I think that J.D. Vance, clearly he's vice president. He's got kind of like first dibs, and Marco's a very serious contender, and maybe they can work something out between the two of them." So, do you think we're going to see a Vance-Rubio ticket in 2028 snubbing Governor DeSantis in Florida?
I don't. I think I like J.D. Vance. The problem is, everybody's not a Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump, the world will miss Donald Trump when God calls him home because this is a guy who stands up for what he believes in, stands up against the nonsense, and isn't afraid to speak his mind. You and I both know, Rich, that ain't D.C. That's not how Washington works. And unfortunately, I like J.D. Vance, but I don't think I think we're going to see the first, you heard it here, the first female president, and I think she's coming out of South Carolina, and I'm going to leave it there.
South Carolina? What, Nikki Haley? You think she's making a comeback?
I do.
Wow. Well, let's see. I think it's going to be tough to lose the rhino patina that she's been painted with, and that rehab alone is going to take a while. But we'll see. We'll see. That might be a bet I'm willing to take you up on. Brandon Brice, I want you to tell absolutely everybody that's listening how they can listen to you, how they can catch you, how they can follow you, and how they keep up to speed with all your work.
Check me out. The Brice is right. www.brandonbrice.com. Real news, real people, straight to the point. Check me out. It's going to be a very interesting year and time. I can tell you, I think that Donald Trump is going to be one of the greats in history. And I think what it is at the end of the day, don't look at what the media, what CNN and MSNBC say. Look at what the man is doing. Promises made and promises kept. Thanks, Rich, for having me on your show, my man.
My brother, thank you for joining us. Thanks for staying awake and keeping us up to speed on everything that's going on. Brandon Brice, originally from Michigan, by way of New Jersey, and now he's out in Delaware, living right next to the former Commander-in-Chief, Joe El Baboso Biden. Brandon, thanks, brother. And amigos, we're coming to your calls right now. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Let's go to Joe, patiently holding Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri, KRMS. Joe, go right ahead, sir. Welcome.
Well, it's not sir. It's a ma'am.
It's ma'am. Joe. It's Joe, J-O. Forgive me. Go right ahead, ma'am.
Yes, exactly. And that would be the pronoun feminine. Thank you very much. Anyway, because seriously, I'm kind of tired of all of that stuff myself. I mean, you know, it's been around for years, nothing new about that. But seriously, obviously, a lot of people have way too much time on their hands that's all they've got to worry about. But the real reason I called tonight was to go back to much earlier when you were talking to Gil, because I am an old-time listener. I go way, way back with this show. And Gil has been a part of it for way, way back. So I just kind of wanted to validate what you were saying to him. And if he's still listening, it's like, Gil, those of us that have been listening to you as well for a long time, Godspeed, prayers with you. And, you know, we've lost way too many voices, so get well quickly and come back to us. And if you don't mind, Rich, I'd like to also, if she's still out there listening, Sharon and Crane, miss your voice as well.
Me too. It's been so long.
And beyond
I think it was a radio issue for her. She wasn't getting the show clearly.
Oh, well, miss her voice anyway.
Me too.
But as far as the political stuff going on and listening to your guest, you know, it's like he said common sense, and it's like that's kind of an oxymoron today, isn't it?
Yeah, I always have this argument with my brother, and I have a whole bunch of brothers, but I argue with each of them. And my brother Joe, who we agree on almost everything, but we argue over these things. Where he says, "Come on, Richie, it's common sense," and I tell him, "Brother, common sense isn't that common anymore." And sadly, that's the truth today, Joe.
Well, I agree. And anyway, that's all I really wanted to add. It's late. I'm tired.
It's great. Thank you for your comments. I appreciate you listening as much as you do, and for your shout out to Gil and for calling in. I appreciate it. Shout out to everybody in Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri, KRMS. Joe, you are a rock star, ma'am. Thank you. And let us continue. Let's go to Globe, Arizona, KRVN. Paul, go for it, my man.
Hey, I wanted to talk to you about something that nobody else is really addressing. You know, this Trump being accused falsely of colluding with Putin. This went on for years. The Mueller report, Hillary's false document. They took the Constitution and threw it under the bus. There's a wide group of people from Obama to Biden and a whole bunch of people that might be indicted for criminal behavior. It's a monstrous, it could end up being a monstrous crime. But there was another party that was falsely accused, and that is Russia and Putin. And we need to get real and stop this Russophobia. Somebody needs to apologize to Putin and the Russian people for being falsely accused of attempting to interfere in our election. That idiot move could have caused an international incident, and right now it's compromising our ability to negotiate with the Russians, who think that we're a bunch of fools that don't even know how to operate our own democracy correctly. How can you negotiate to end the war in Ukraine with people who are willing to lie, corrupt, and go to any extreme and infuriate and insult a nuclear power that has the missiles to destroy us many times over? That nobody ever has any strategic empathy about the Russians. Everything was bashing the Russians for years on end, day in.
Well, let me be the first to continue bashing the Russians, Paul. I'll say this. I believe that Russia is as guilty of so many of the things they're accused of as they are. Now, maybe in this instance, they were meddling and trying to influence the election, and what they were labeled as Russia hacked the election, right? Russia hacked the election for Donald Trump, which was not true. But I get your point. But I'll say this. There's nothing that I don't put past them. I am not a pro-Putin patriot. I could care less. I think that he should be gone and that we should go in a better direction. Now, listen, he's not the worst, right? That's why I'm not saying we should regime change and overthrow the guy. It's not that serious for me. But I don't trust him as far as I can throw him. I mean, him, Zelensky, birds of a feather, in my opinion. And they'd probably both be offended by that statement if they were listening to me. But I doubt that they are. But, yeah, I'm not giving Russia any apologies. They're not doing anything in our best interest. And they're also, neither one of those clowns at this point are willing to even entertain the idea of talking about peace, and I think that's where we have to be. This little excursion in taking over former land of yours and et cetera, it's old and it needs to end. Paul, thank you for your call. KRVN in the building. Let us see. I think I have to take a pause here, and I'm going to come back. Pat in Arizona, Pops in Atlantic City, Rachel in Pensacola, George in Chicago. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, it is the speed round, and we're going to go to your calls. Be quick and to the point. Give me your best sentence. Let's see, where do we go? Rachel, Pensacola, Florida, WTTB. Quickly, go right ahead.
Hi. Yes, I was calling in regards to vaccinations. There's two correlations. I don't know. My daughter that's 14, she was born in 2010, and I have 6 children. She's the youngest. You know, there used to be where you could have peanuts in the classroom, like peanut butters at school.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, you know, when she started school, they weren't allowed anymore to have nuts. She has a severe anaphylactic peanut, egg, and walnut allergy. And I work in the food industry, and I've found throughout the years that children who have the exact same allergies or the same age.
Do you think it's because of a vaccine?
The hepatitis vaccine, yes. And my children, and I think the correlation is our family has a history of having inflammation in the intestine. And all of my children, except for my son, that I didn't give him in the DPT, I'm sorry, what the P stands for.
Yeah, that's the diphtheria vaccine. But you know what? The doctor that we had on, you're referring to, Dr. Peter McCullough, he talked about that. And he said, we have such few incidences of these. And if we did, we could treat him with a Z-Pack, that we shouldn't be inoculating our children against these things. And I think that's a valuable lesson. So thank you, Rachel, for your call. Let me see. Where do I go from here? I guess I might have to go through these myself because we won't have time to get to everybody. George in Chicago, Illinois on WLS says, COVID was a time when it was better to be safe than sorry. I think that was the tactic that they used in order to make sure that they could scare you into submission. If you were elderly or sick, then you probably needed a vaccine. If you weren't, you shouldn't have. Pat in Sedona, I love you, my brother. Mike Johnson would make a good I think Mike Johnson would make a good presidential candidate, too. Very, very good. Shout out to KFNX, Pat in Arizona. Pops in Atlantic City, you worked with Trump. I would love to hear more about that. 1400 Atlantic City, WOND. Pops, shout out to you, my man. Hopefully you can call back. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.